Now, something our society doesn't get about the loneliness epidemic is that it's actually a systemic issue. I've talked about this in some of my other videos before. By the way, I'm actually recording this in my car now. You actually have a car for once. It's actually mine. It's not like it doesn't belong to anybody else. But anyway, so what I mean by systemic issue is that it's not something that can just be solved by an individual effort. So it's like climate change. We've tried the whole, just reduce your carbon footprint, and everybody does that. It'll somehow magically fix everything. But it didn't work. Because of course it didn't, because that's not how you solve a systemic issue. You can't solve it by making it a personal responsibility bullshit. Now, it used to be that even a high school diploma would actually get you a decent paying job. Again, I've talked about this before a bit, but nowadays, jobs that actually pay the bills and get you a house are pretty rare. But it used to be that even a high school diploma job could pay the bills, get you a house, and but that all went away. With the BS of the free trade, we were promised that the free trade would make us all better off. Yet in reality, you all fucking know that wages stagnated, costs of living continued to go up, real costs of living. And it turns out that most of us are actually far worse off with the whole free trade bullshit. And they continue to say, oh, you're better off because you have smartphone internet, lol. The fucking Steven Pinker dipshits continue to say that, oh, everything's getting better and this is the best time to be alive. I know I've talked about that quite a bit before, but turns out that the snake oil just made us sicker, like one of those mercury whatever tonics that claim would clear all your illnesses up. Oh, you see this mercuric chloride tonic, it'll cure all your ills. It'll cure your dyspepsia or whatever other made-up bullshit disease I've invented today. Another thing with this whole free trade bullshit, you've noticed that most of the jobs that people have don't actually produce anything. You won't hear this talked about. You'll hear just say, oh, the service economy. But think about it for just a few seconds. Think about it. It's like money was made as a replacement for stuff. So substitute stuff back in. If our country isn't making any stuff, but other countries are, what the hell and stuff is traded for stuff because we're substituting money back in for stuff like how it was made as a substitute for. How the hell can we actually be getting wealthier? How can our economy be growing? If you think about it, it can't. I mean, and if you look around, it's obvious that it hasn't. I made a video about this before, but if you want to check it out, you can. And this is intro to all this. As a result, most people have less time to meet people from working more hours, because since cost of living went up, wages stagnated, you have to work more hours on average. The average person has to work more hours on average to be able to afford jack shit. And young people, people like me, people probably most of the age that are watching this, in order to avoid having to borrow large sums of money for college, we live with parents through and even past college. And a lot of us, since our parents own or rent places in towns where it's all old people, I'm sure you know what I mean when I say boomervilles. I've mentioned this before in another video, but these are towns made up of people that are mostly 40 plus or older even. And part of the reason for their formation is because, as these living standards decline, people have less kids, so the young are diluted amongst the old even more. The people who had the money to leave or could go to college or were willing to get shot in the leg, so to speak, for all that damn college debt to be able to live on campus, they all left, and now it's just us. And owning a home as a young person is a fucking pipe dream. So we live in these towns that are with their parents that are full of all these other old people. And the jobs like at Walmart, Amazon, Menards, these employers are like the largest employers in so many states, and it used to be that a lot of the jobs that people had, you had more chance to interact with people, but I'm sure anybody who works in an Amazon warehouse, I mean, I don't personally, but I've talked to people who do it. Not only do you not have any chances to really talk to people much, it seems like you're actively penalized for it. oh, you gotta be working every second of the day that you're there, and if you're 1 second late with this package, you're gonna be penalized, you're gonna have to talk to somebody about it or some shit, or it's gonna be logged in some computer bullshit. And people say, oh, you just need to get out there. But what fucking there is there to get out to anyway? There isn't any there left, it's all gone. And jobs don't allow us to socialize. What hobby clubs? If they even exist, they're all fucking boomers by this point. They used to be, like, you know, in your parents' and grandparents' ages, they used to be where young people could meet and stuff after high school and college, but they all kind of shriveled up and died. Like, just try looking for them. Unless you live in a larger city, you're not going to find them, or if you do find them, it's going to be all boomers. And then one of the few things that a lot of towns still have is parks, but go to the park in your local town or Boomerville or whatever, and you'll see that it's mostly just boomers with their school-age children, or just boomers walking their dogs or whatever. There's not going to be anybody your age, or very few, if any. So I think it was in the very first video I uploaded to the channel. It's called the 27 Epidemic. And I explained in the video why it's called that, but I did the actual math for how bad dating apps actually are. It's not just you, they literally don't work. I mean, obviously they're not designed to, because these companies are in the business to make money. More lonely people means more customers. So eHarmony had said in one of their ads that's played on TV and all that shit, that every 14 minutes somebody finds love. Some people say, oh, but it's actually two people every 14 minutes, but I think that's not the case. It's actually 2 over 28, you simplify that fraction 1 over 14, they're mathematically the same. So, okay, let's take that. So let's assume they have 1 million users. This is a repeat for some of you, but let's assume they have 1 million users. Probably much more than that, and everybody has the same chances and equal number of men and women. So every 14 minutes, you have a 1 in a million chance. If you take the number of minutes in a year and divided by 14, that's the number of chances in a million you have per year. And if you take that number of chances and divide it by 1 million, what you actually end up with is about a 4% chance in a year that you find love, whatever their definition of that means, but that doesn't sound too reassuring. Another dumb argument for dating apps is that, if dating apps don't work, you're just not using enough of them. You just don't have enough positive mindset. You gotta get out there and you gotta make your profile better, and you just gotta use more of them. Now, this argument is fucking dumb because it assumes that there's an infinite supply of something. Now, here's an analogy for you. Suppose there's 100 fish in this shitty creek, and there's 100 fishers, 100 people fishing in the creek. And they all have the same odds, okay, to start with. So they should all, on average, that doesn't mean they will, but on average, you take a large number of simulations of them fishing and you average together. On average, they should all each catch 1 fish. Now, suppose, like, you say, these people say, just use more dating apps. So suppose Bob now decides to put 2 hooks in. You know, the whole more hooks in the sea, you'll catch more fish. Just trust me, believe it. So he puts 2 hooks in, thus doubling his odds. So say the snake oil salesman. So he should catch 2, in quotations, 2 fish. I'll get back to that. What happens next? What happens after Bob starts catching 2 fish? What's everybody else going to do? They're going to copy Bob now, aren't they? So now everybody should catch 2 fish, right? So, they must have worked so fucking hard that it summoned fish into existence that didn't exist in the fucking creek before. Or maybe this argument is fucking stupid and you need to learn how math works. It's simply BS to believe that you can just throwing more hooks in will solve all your problems. There's only so many damn fish. You can't do anything about that. Now here's how it actually works. So the odds of any individual fisher of catching a number of fish is actually equal to the number of fish divided by the total luck. I'll get back to that. The total luck, you can think of this as very simple in this explanation. It's the total number of hooks that everybody has combined. So the total number of fish in the creek, which is 100 in this example all the time, divided by the total number of luck, which initially is 100. Take that and then multiply it by the luck held by the individual fisher, and you have the average number of fish they'll catch. So initially, when Bob puts in 2 hooks, he increases the luck he has, and now the total luck of all the fishers combined equals 101. So 100 fish divided by 101 luck, that result times 2 equals 1.98. That's not quite 2, but it's plenty close enough. That's why it said, oh, it's about 2. But that's where the snake oil salesman explanations break down, because after that, things get way off. So Bob's success, it isn't free, because everyone else still has only 1 luck, but there's now 101 luck in the system. So 100 fish divided by 101 times, that quantity times 1 actually only equals about 0.99. Still pretty close to 1, but somebody's going to get shafted. What happens after everyone copies Bob? Oh, it turns out they don't catch 200 fish. Oh, big fucking surprise. They can't summon fish out of thin air or thin water. After everyone copies Bob, there's still 100 fish, but it's divided by 200 luck. But that quantity times 2 equals, again, 1 fish. That's where we fucking started off. It turns out when everybody has double the luck, nobody has double the luck. Everybody still has the same odds. This is why the infinite thinking of the snake oil salesman doesn't work, because nothing is fucking infinite. The whole snake oil salesman infinite thinking is why there's so many problems in our damn society. Oh, look at climate catastrophe. Oh, the air is practically infinite. Like, the CO2 we're pumping into it is so minuscule in comparison to how much air there is. We could never affect the atmosphere enough to cause any permanent or real damage. Or look at the passenger pigeon. Oh, look, there's fucking tons of them. You're never gonna run out of them. You're never gonna hunt them to extinction. And then 1914, and then the last one of them dies. But if you try to explain any of this to a fucking normie, they'll act like they didn't fucking hear you right. They'll act like they got shit in their ears. The reality of the situation falls on deaf ears for them. In a society poisoned by snake oil, nobody will hear you. Politicians sure as hell won't do anything to solve the loneliness epidemic. They'll say, oh, you're lonely, just use the dating apps, they worked. And then they'll give you a list of like a couple people or something they know. Might as well give you a list of lottery winners and tell you the lottery fucking works. And the reason why they'll do that is because they don't want to have to spend any money on fixing the problem. Oh no, spending money on fixing stuff, oh no, we can't do that. And I'm not saying the politicians should like assign people like friends and partners and shit, no. I'm saying invest in real social spaces that are as easy and accessible as high school was and is. The fraction of the normies who the dating apps work with, that block of them that the dating apps work well enough for them to not complain, they'll also side with the politicians. They'll propose to you whenever you expose the truth of what's going on, whenever you try to explain the reality of our situation to them. They'll propose, they'll pull out of their fucking ass an endless list of solutions that don't actually work. They're just meant so you have to constantly explain why they don't work and to make you look like a jackass. They're not actually meant to actually solve anything. They're just meant as fucking hopium for you to sit there and huff and for them to say, oh, it's actually their fault. There's no problem. I'm not one of the lucky ones and they're not one of the shafted ones. It's all their fault in the beginning. As long as dating apps work for a large enough portion of the population, nothing will change. We're living in a loneliness epidemic. And like the coronavirus, those with pre-existing conditions are going to be most severely affected. Now, you talk to people and they'll have you believe, oh, you're forever alone because you're fat or short or autistic. Or you might just want something a little bit different than everybody else or whatever. I mean, sure, that's a contributing factor, but would you say that if your uncle who is a diabetic got coronavirus and died, that he died because he was a diabetic instead of because of the coronavirus? As long as normies and politicians have dating apps used as an excuse to not fix anything, nothing will ever change. The only way anything will ever change is to make the normies see how the other half lives. I'm No Offense signing off for tonight. You're listening to WFUK LP, the only radio that